On December 19th, 2006, this is the regular meeting of the School Committee of the Town of Foxborough. Good evening, everybody. Our agenda for tonight is 7 p.m. visitors, 7:05 p.m. approval of minutes. At 7:15 p.m. we have a teaching and learning highlight within the FHS student presentation at MassQ, local appeal, global impact with FHS student Courtney Seeley, Soli Stamatos and Pam Francisco, and Ms. Karen Frazier and Ms. Irene Titmus. At 7:30, we will have a preliminary discussion of our proposed FY18 budget with Ms. Spinelli and Mr. Yukna. 8:05 p.m. we'll have the FY17 budget update with Mr. Yukna. At 8:15 p.m. we'll have a strategic planning committee spring 2017. We're going to discuss the two school committee representatives to the next strategic planning committee. 8:25 p.m. acceptance of donations, and 8:35 p.m. other matters. And before we get started tonight, I just wanted to offer my personal condolences and also condolences from the entire committee to Christine Igo Freeman on the loss of her husband Jim Freeman this past weekend. Both Christine and Jim have been steadfast supporters of Foxborough Public Schools. Jim was on the board of FACES, Foxborough Community Enriching Schools, and they've both been in front of this committee several times to give us wonderful grants for our schools, and I know all of us are grieving right along
Christine
with
is a former teacher and librarian from the Foxborough school systems also.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, yes. And I would just want to offer our condolences to Christine. Anybody like to add anything?
Happy birthday tomorrow.
Really any words?
There really aren't.
No words.
Really aren't. Do we have any visitors who wish to be heard? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the approval of minutes. We have before us the November 21st, 2016 regular meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes, thoughts, additions?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. I should say Ms. Weiss is not joining us tonight. She's not feeling 100%, so her absence will be missed. Thank you. All right. Is our teaching and learning highlight ready? Would you like to come up to our table?
Please do. So we have some wonderful representation from Foxborough High School. We have Ms. Karen Frazier, and we have Ms. Irene Titmus. And I think these young women did a presentation at MassQ, which is a statewide technology conference held at Gillette Stadium in October. And I think when our kids have exceeded to such a high level and their confidence brings them to present at a statewide conference, it shouldn't be enough for just those of us who are in attendance to appreciate it. So that's why I want you to come, because it really is, it was quite impressive that you did that, and I think your project is so special. So I'm glad that you're here. We're missing Pam.
Pam, yeah, she
Okay,
couldn't make it.
great. So, not great that we're missing her, but I just wanted to make sure people knew who was here. So I'm going to turn it over to the teachers, and they can introduce, and the kids can introduce themselves, or they can. And then these young ladies will tell us about their fabulous experience.
I just wanted to take a moment to say how grateful I am to Soli and Courtney and Pam for their dedication and their willingness to show leadership, and to tell them how much honor they bring to our department and to our school system by the things that they do and the way that they handle themselves when we are out at these kinds of presentations and workshops. So I'm very proud to be their teacher, and I know that Senorita Frazier feels the same way. So we're very honored to be their teacher, and we really hope that they understand how much they bring to our community in the things that they participate in and their willingness to do these kinds of things. So I will let Ms. Senorita Frazier have a word or two if she would like.
What's great about this project is we talk all the time about global citizenship, and this really was a way to connect our students globally while using the language. And these young ladies were presenting at MassQ, and we were kind of standing behind the table, and we noticed a woman had approached them and started speaking to them in Spanish and asking them questions. And it turned out she was a teacher from Mexico City, and the gentlemen who were the cameramen for MassQ overheard that conversation, and they happened to speak Spanish as well. So they jumped in and took advantage of the opportunity to interview them in Spanish, which was awesome. And
Right.
so they gave a presentation, but what was nice was this was really an interpersonal exchange between the students and these cameramen and the woman from Mexico City. So they were speaking spontaneously. There was nothing prepared about
Quite
the conversation.
unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a great opportunity for everybody.
Yeah.
So how did this come about and what is the project?
You want to talk about?
So we came up with projects to be able to fund almost like little projects in Spanish-speaking countries. Like, for example, my group, we did in the Dominican Republic. We wanted to raise money to give resources to kids to play baseball. And like other groups made projects to donate almost like water cleaning machines for, I forget what country, but I think Colombia. And so they would have clean water because the water that they have has been like really been affecting their health, and other projects like that.
Yeah, like we've come up with like a bunch of them in the classroom in small groups, and then we presented them to each other in the classroom. And then at the technology conference, we had a presentation for it, and when people would come up and ask us about it, we would like tell them a bunch of the different things we had to do, answer any questions they had. We got to meet a lot of the other students and see how they use the technology for their projects. It was a really cool day. We met a lot of really cool people, and we ended up being able to go take a picture on the field, which was pretty fun. So
And they saw Tom Brady.
we did. We saw him run away real quick, but we
You're
missed
one
him
of the
after
few
that.
groups that has ever been out there for a photo op where the team actually walked right by you.
They walked
And-
right
and
by us, and they didn't even say hi. I can't believe it. But
They were thinking it, though.
yeah, definitely.
So it was actually a unit on microfinancing and understanding how that works around the world. So the students each picked small projects on sites like kiva.org, and I think your class used even a few others
Yeah.
this year.
We're still looking for ones that are the most appropriate, because most of the ones that we're able to find are not in the Spanish language, and I'm pretty hardcore about that kind of thing. So, but the idea is that they're not looking to help a particular person or an individual, but rather a community, and then from there, help the community become economically autonomous. And that's the end idea, the end goal. So we will revisit this idea again in the spring and see how we can wrap it all up, so.
So they basically are functioning as like marketing agents for global microfinance
Pretty much,
projects that
right.
help people in poor countries improve their lot in life, basically. And you're actually the free marketing team, sort of. That's the way I'm speaking of it.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
quite amazing.
Okay, so we'll show the video and then we can talk afterwards or take questions if you have any. I don't know. I can't even apparently press a button on a computer, so thank you, Sully.
It's not playing.
Try it again.
An hour, please try again later.
Let me try to refresh it.
Yeah, maybe refresh it.
I would like exit out, escape, and then just refresh the page.
Might as well.
Estudiantes de la clase de AP Español y nosotros queremos hacer un proyecto para ayudar a otros grupos que necesitan ayuda. Sí, hay muchos proyectos diferentes en nuestra clase, pero mi grupo quiere ayudar a las personas en Argentina que tienen chagas. Es una enfermedad de los ojos y hay una cura, pero no pueden tener el cura si no tienen el dinero suficiente, y necesitamos los doctores en Argentina y queremos que vamos a ayudarlos con los doctores. Vamos a votar. Ellas tienen un proyecto. Pamela. Nuestro proyecto queremos preservar la cultura en la República Dominicana con el béisbol, y sabemos que los niños y los necesario. Entonces queremos dar recursos a ellos para que ellos puedan jugar al béisbol y como ellos quieren ser como famosos en el béisbol, como Big Papi. Sabemos que él, todas las personas en la comunidad dominicana tienen el potencial de ser como él.
Muchas gracias.
Ahí sí, vamos a entregarlo a la organización MAPU, que llamamos Susi MAPU, y la organización puede dar unos micropréstamos para soportar los proyectos y si quieres.
¿Y aprendiste todo esto de la clase o?
Sí, mucho.
¿Cuánto ya aplicaste?
En la clase, pero hay muchos años.
Buen problema.
Gracias.
¿Cuándo empezaste? ¿Qué edad?
Grado 1.
Yeah.
Sí.
¿Tu comunidad ahí?
Sí, en las
¿Qué
escuelas.
más francés?
Sí, tenemos el francés también. Y American language.
¿Dónde?
Tenemos el francés también en las escuelas.
Sí, pero ¿dónde? ¿Cuál es el...?
Foxborough High School.
Foxborough,
Sí.
okay. Foxborough.
We are at Hopkinton High School to hear about what they are doing with iPhones.
We don't care.
Impressive.
And photography. Lily, can you tell us about your project?
We will be heard.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
That's
I-
impressive.
I'm very impressed. I clearly don't remember much of my high school Spanish because mostly what I caught was Big Papi, but it sounded great to me. Well, what was your biggest takeaway from your day at MassQ? What did you find most important?
Well, it was really interesting to see what all the different student perspectives were at MassQ, and I thought that it was really, really cool to see what different people were like supporting and what they were there to showcase to all the different students. So I thought it was really interesting, all the different aspects that you can like see from using technology through the schools in the classroom.
That's great. What about you, Sully?
It was really cool how like other schools, they incorporated technology to like communicate with other parts in the world. Like one school, I think it was Norwood, they set up a Skype with a school in the Middle East, I think, and they have like Skype calls and they like teach each other, like they share the cultures, and it was really cool to see how just like one like type of technology can like bond like two different cultures.
So you got some ideas back that
Yeah.
you might use in your own classroom the rest of this year?
There were some really cool keynote speakers too.
Yeah.
Oh
Like
my
there was a
gosh.
really young speaker. What was he in? Was he 10?
Sixth grade.
I think he was 10 years old,
Yeah.
and he was brilliant. Like he did so many cool things with technology. Like he's already like has this whole plan of how to change technology in the school system. It was really cool to hear what he had to say.
That's great.
Hire him. We want to be on the cutting edge.
I think their project was great, and I learned something in the video, because I was assigned to go to another workshop by Miss Greenstein, that's why I missed yours, to get the MIT app inventors. But so I learned something. So you're in different groups, and the groups pick different things, different countries, different projects. So I didn't realize that it wasn't just one project. It was actually several around the world. So I just learned that from you.
Yeah, the students were encouraged to find a project that spoke to them, that really
Right.
was interesting to them. And then they had sort of a competition to figure out
And yours
which
had to
was
do
the
with
most
children
impactful.
in a school, but I kind of got a gist of it, but since I'm not 100% comprehender, but I got the gist of it.
One of them that was really cool for my class, I don't know if you've heard of the Pulsera project, but it was something similar to that, how people in the indigenous countries make little muñecas, little dolls, and like the Pulseras, people like from the United States have like a sale with them, and they can buy a bunch of Pulseras and then sell them at school and return all the donations to the people who make them. And it's basically the same thing with like the little dolls, like they make them in their indigenous countries, and then we can get them and sell them, which would be pretty cool, I think.
It's amazing. I don't know.
Does anyone else?
I don't know many kids who would have the confidence to be interviewed in the second language
I know.
at this level, so I was just blown away.
I don't know many adults who would be.
I personally
go there, including
That's true.
myself. So, very impressive. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank Amy.
I just think that it's so exciting in the last number of years to see our students and teachers presenting at MassQ, because it is a huge conference. It is right here in our backyard. But to have the technology infused in the curriculum where it's meaningful, it has a global impact, the learning that takes place, it really does far exceed the classroom. And it's just exciting to see people step up and to put in a proposal and to have it accepted and to be presenting.
That's great. How many schools participate?
Oh, it's
It's the entire
statewide.
state.
Actually,
Yeah.
districts come from New England, everywhere in New England.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a statewide joint superintendent and MassQ computer using educators conference. There's teachers, administrators, we had several groups of kids there, not just one.
Didn't
but
one of
that
our
was
own
impressive.
administrators receive an award at that?
I'm sorry?
Didn't one of our own administrators receive an award at that?
Yes.
As I recall.
It's been good. So it was just impressive to see them there at the booth, even just the information of how many people were stopping at your booth to get information. It was great. Very proud.
Thank you for bringing your show on the road to us so that we could see it, since we
Thank
weren't
you for
invited
inviting
to
us.
go to MassQ. So this is great. Alex, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I'm just jealous of how Solange can roll the L's and the R's.
Yes, she does that well. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Sharing
Thank you.
your
for having
information
us.
with
Wonderful. Thank you. What a great example of such high achievement we're having now in world
Felicidades.
languages.
Felicidades.
Excellent. All right. Mr. Yupta, Ms. Spinelli, are you ready to talk about our preliminary proposed FY18 budget?
Are. Stop by. Right in the middle of the meeting anyway. That was our, that was true. So it's really good to see the kids come back after they graduate.
It
To
is.
get a chance to catch up and see. So sorry, I was a little distracted by waving from
That's
second
all
there.
right.
So at your seats, you have the PowerPoint slides. I apologize they weren't in your packet. I didn't realize they weren't. I'm taking that totally on me. So this really is the guide to what's happening with the budget. I think everybody has one that needs one. These are these over at the side table? Yep. Yep.
Hi. I'll miss you.
You're taking your name
I
tag.
can make
You're just
faces at you now,
completely
Bruce.
decamping
Okay.
for the rest of the meeting. Absolutely right. All right, that seems to make sense.
So Bill and I, he's getting the PowerPoint, but Bill and I will take you through this, and we'll take turns each talking about the areas that we, both equally familiar with. It's starting to become sort of second nature. I think before we even start going into the technical information, I think you'll find that when it comes to, things that people want to hear about most, like positions, we definitely are paring things down. We're definitely taking, as we always do, a very close look at needs of students and enrollment, at staffing. We are adding no new programs, no new positions, department initiatives, but we are definitely, our goal is to preserve what we have. So this is the FY18 preliminary budget, presented by the Foxborough School District, by Mr. Yukna and myself. So we'll start with the budget timeline. As you know from the joint presentation you have with the Board of Selectmen, the town develops the budget timeline. So on November 1st, Bill and I met with town leadership. We have our joint meeting just to frame the budget process, to make sure that we're on the same page philosophically and that we have the same expectations and agreements going forward. A week later, on the 7th, was the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee. You're here at this table to review the revenue forecast and the potential, the potential load on the town in the next coming years. I think that's always informative and helpful. By December 16th, our school budget request, this preliminary budget number, is due to the town finance director. And I think in our 6 years we've been doing this, we have always been on time with our budget going up to the town side so that it doesn't hold anything back on their end. Here we are on the 19th of December for our first public presentation of the preliminary FY18 budget here at this table. And as you know, the school committee discusses and analyzes the budget over the next 2 meetings as well. The first meeting in January. I don't think we put that here, but anyway, the first meeting in January is also continued discussion of the budget. And then on the 23rd, this committee has a public review and vote on the recommended school budget. So we have 3 opportunities to look at the budget, to discuss it together, to establish our priorities. So as we have other years, what we appreciate in between this meeting and the next meeting, in between the second and the third, is that if you have any additional questions, you want more information from Bill or from me, that you ask us and we'll present it to you in a timely fashion if it's an individual question, or we'll bring it back to the next meeting if you want to have a public discussion about that. Hopefully, with a vote on the recommended school budget on December 23rd, we then move forward to our hearing with the advisory committee, their review of our school budget on February 1st, and then it's approved at the annual town meeting. So that's the usual type of timeline that we go through.
Debbie, excuse me, the only thing I would add to the calendar, and just for the committee's awareness, is we did have a budget subcommittee meeting on December 14th. Marilyn and I met with Debbie and Bill and had our preliminary deep dive of the budget.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for adding that.
All right, I'll keep going. The budget message really hasn't shifted much over the last couple of years, because we have gotten to the point where we have the district in good shape when it comes to services for students. So we are proposing a budget that maintains that same high level of educational services to the students, and to adjust to our shifting student population. We'll be discussing that a little bit later, and how that relates to the needs that we have for staffing and programmatic needs. We always work within the current level of municipal funding and the town budget framework, and that's consistent with the historical financial approach of the town, and it's very strong and welcome commitment to public education that has never wavered, and we appreciate that and thank the town for that. As always, our proposed FY18 budget reflects the priorities in the district's strategic plan, which is in its 3rd year of 3. So that strategic plan went from 2014 to 17. So we always put the overall overarching goals of the strategic plan, or objectives, if you will, so that we make sure that anything we're proposing, whether it's the same or shifting or increasing, kind of goes along with the district set by this committee and the strategic planning process that we engage in. And I don't know if I don't think, people can go online and look at that. I don't think we need much discussion of the strategic planning. Do you think it's worth reading, or you think, well, just move right on?
I think we're all pretty
I think so.
familiar with the goals.
Okay,
the
those are
objectives.
online. If people want to know what the strategic planning objectives are, you can find that on our main website. So this budget proposal maintains our reasonable class sizes. It does preserve all current programs and services to students, and we always try to take steps, whether it's a step that involves cost or a step that doesn't involve cost. The budget does support our academic and strategic initiatives going forward. You'll see later when Bill goes over the specific numbers, we do have increasing needs in special education. We've had more students move in. We've also had more students either move in with an out-of-district placement, or we've placed a few kids out of district due to their needs and according to their individual educational programs. So the budget definitely addresses that increase. We went many years without an increase in that area, and last year and this year we are seeing an increase in out-of-district that I think there's a natural ebb and flow that most districts have. The other increased need, which is actually very minimal, but it's a good news increase, is that there's growing student participation in our extracurricular clubs and activities and our athletic programs. So that's all good. So we want kids to participate in everything they want to. So as this committee is known at this table, we've added an assistant coach or two when our numbers in a particular sport or activity. We've added a few clubs. We're expanding a little bit more in the realm of middle school clubs and activities, because we haven't touched that in probably 10 years. So we're looking to provide a little bit more support for students who want to try some extracurricular clubs and activities at the middle school level. We always have increased costs of new technology tools and solutions, and those are critical to what we're doing in education today, but they also come with agreements or licensing requirements that we do, and we do take a close look. Bill, when he gets to a certain part of the budget, Bill's going to talk about how he consolidated that in one place, because that's been an important part of how we manage it. Not necessarily, it's not important to the growth, it's how we manage that increased cost. And we always meet state guidelines, so. All right, Bill?
All right.
As we, kind of discussed through this whole thing, there's only a few things that we are really changing this year. But I always feel like I need to go back, even though it's not on this slide, and make sure everybody remembers how the process really starts. And that is that our major component of our budget is our payroll. Our payroll is actually derived by the individuals that we actually have on staff. So we take the existing people, we take their current salaries, we take what they're going to be on next year, whether it's a step or lane or just a COLA increase, and we actually build that up. That's about 85% of our budget. So the payroll budgets that you see here are all backed up by people under each position, under each department, under each building. And so it's not just numbers that are placed or anything fictitious. It's actual people with lists that we can use to do that. We obviously are looking at each school and each building when we do this. We don't do anything in the total. We do everything as a breakdown by component and program. The budget obviously always based on the $125,000 decrease that's been kind of mandated in our process, expects that we're going to have 4 to 5 retirees a year. We've been fortunate over the last few years to have that. There may come a time where that doesn't happen just because we are now starting to turn and get into a younger base. But that's how we make up for that 125. Basically, we have to have a number leaving at the higher end and a number coming in at the lower end to make it up.
That well's drying up a little bit, isn't it?
It is, but again, we've been able to sustain it. I think when I look at the models out 1 or 2 years, depending on if people stay the longer time frame or if they decide to get out earlier, but if they stay the longer time frame, we could be in trouble in a couple of years with that.
And we thought this year might be the year. I think we discussed this last year.
Yeah.
And I think we are getting to the point where we very carefully think about that $125,000 automatic deduction, which, does put pressure on our summer hiring. And I think every year you should expect that we look at it and we'll have to tell you whether we think that's still going to be manageable, because we thought last year we just do squeak it out sometimes. But I think we discussed it and we're still okay with keeping that number in. Wish us luck again one more year, and we'll see where we are next year.
The other part of this, our school budget, is that it's what we call an all-in budget. So all of our expenses and all of our salaries are in this budget. And then at the end, what we do is an offset. So we do get state grants and federal grants. We reduce our salaries and expense overall budgets by that amount. We do have the circuit breaker, which is basically a special needs fund that comes from the state that we reduce. And then we also have revolving accounts internally, whether it's building maintenance, tuition accounts, or whatever, that we also use to reduce down what the town side exposure is. But when you're looking at our budget, you're looking at everything we're going to spend with those reductions, bringing us down to the net that the town will actually be supporting or being asked to support. The final piece to this one is that, as you know, last year we started off on a program to go to full free day universal kindergarten. And we did year one basically where we went from $3,000 in tuition down to $2,500 this year. The anticipation is if we get additional funding, we did it under a 4-year program, expecting the funding from the town over a 4-year period to build up. If we get the funding again this year, we are looking to go to free kindergarten next year and use with the balance in the revolving accounts from tuitions to carry us for the next 2 years as the town continues to fund that until in year 4 we end up being fully free and fully funded under that program, and the revolving account obviously for kindergarten tuition would no longer exist.
Does it look promising that we will get that funding once more?
Well, it's really up to the town. I mean, the town management, both Bill, Randy, and Mary Beth are supportive of the free full-day kindergarten. From their perspective, they see it as an important component. We see it obviously as a important component because it is one of the things that differentiates us from the charter school. They don't charge for kindergarten, we do. Other than that, we have a lot of benefits that they don't have. So again, we feel if we could get the children at the very beginning, but if you're a parent and right now you could get free kindergarten, why wouldn't you? So I think this is one of the things that we look at as a component to us, which means we would lose less money in our charter school reimbursement because we'd have less kids there.
Mm-hmm. So we very quickly make up that and some. But I think we look at every area. If we think we're not competitive, that's definitely an area we need to look at. We're not competitive in kindergarten when we're still charging a tuition, and there's a free program available. So I think we have to solve that problem if we want to start strong.
So just while we're on this topic, if I may, for parents out there of incoming kindergartners next year, should they be aware of dates to sign up or programs to offer? Do you
Yes,
wanna-
the registration package is out now, but we don't send them the letter until January. They have parent evenings, so they can come find out a little bit more about kindergarten. So I think what we're going to do this year is tell them that right now we expect, if all goes well, there won't be a tuition. And then if at town meeting, something different, after town meeting, we have a different situation, then we'll regroup and figure that out then. So I think that's the approach that we've decided to take. Rather than collecting money from people that we may not need, we don't feel that comfortable about that. But we are going to put in the notification to families that as of today, this is what we think the situation is, but that it could change, and that it's all dependent on town meeting. So I think, for me, I always speak for myself, it's uncomfortable to be charging a fee for an academic program in a pre-K to 12 district. And preschool is not mandated by law, so that's fine. Kids want, you want to send your child to preschool, everybody expects to pay for preschool. But when it comes to kindergarten, that's really uncomfortable. We're not a district that's had to charge for parking or for athletics or for clubs or activities or any of the busing, any of the fees you typically
we're
see. Yet we
unique,
charge for an
practically.
academic program, which a lot of districts, even worse off than us, don't do. And it seems to be just a cluster of districts on the South Shore that still charge for tuition. So I don't want to be the last district in Massachusetts still charging for an academic for full-day kindergarten. So it's really important to me as an educator that we move toward that. So, I think that the town so far has philosophically agreed with that and supported that. That I think we came up with a very reasonable 4-year phase-out plan, like a seesaw, totally dependent on tuitions. And now, hopefully next year we're going to be somewhere in the middle where we don't have to charge, but we're still dependent on the fees we've collected, and then we'll tip toward funding it as we do every other academic program.
So this was, I asked Debbie to comment, 'cause this was a point of discussion we had with the budget subcommittee, and I would just summarize what the superintendent said by saying to our parents that if you'd like to take advantage of Foxborough Public Schools, you should go ahead and sign your children up for kindergarten here, and then watch the outcome of town meeting to ensure that the budget is passed.
Well, attend town meeting. Ensure that
Even
the budget
better.
is passed,
Even
but
better.
Both of those
Even
things. I would agree with that. And it has been a long time coming. I mean,
It
we are
has.
in our 9th year upcoming of full-day
Correct.
kindergarten. So I think, as with most things, it's been a deliberate, conservative approach, designed, not to have a big hit all in one year.
I agree.
And I think we talked, at length about the phased-in approach, which has seemed to work. And if we could, in the process of accomplishing free, universal, full-day kindergarten in Foxborough, we will I think we will stand to recoup that with the charter school monies that are going out of our our budget.
How many kindergartners attend the charter school from Foxborough?
15 right now.
How many?
15.
It's the largest group by far, almost double most of the other class sizes. The elementary base is the biggest base that they have of ours, and obviously as children get to the middle school and high school, there's obviously other options. They can go to private schools as well at that point, but the reality is many come back to our district because of our offerings in all of the other areas as well.
So typically they go there kindergarten and come back first grade?
They'll go, we start to see a drop. It literally will go from that 15 down to about 9, and then down to about 7, and it just, kind of goes through a process. So the whole point is if you can prevent them from going in at kindergarten because you're offering at a level that they want, you could also potentially keep them from being in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade there, which it would, again, to Tina's point.
The savings multiplies.
The savings
So
multiplies by each year.
It's close to $15,000 that follows a student over there, per student, per year. So.
So it's a win-win-win.
The total budget that we would be looking for from the town is $34,089,604. It's an increase of $1,116,969, or 3.53. This compares to a 3.9% increase last year. And obviously, with all of our contracts now settled, this also is a very firm number with the numbers posted in the appropriate schools and building level with all of the expenses for salaries and other contractual issues.
All right. what's new in the school budget? So we have just an increase of one educational, district-wide, one educational assistant position, so we're one ed assistant up already in this budget due to, oh, no, it doesn't matter, a move-in. So if they move in with an IEP, then we hire them during the mid-year, so but that is different from last year's budget, so we're net increase of one for, to meet our IEPs. The second bullet, we have an increase of half of a teacher and half of an educational assistant at the IGO Elementary School, so that we could create the full-day classroom. So we had anticipated 3.5 kindergartens at the IGO. We ended up with 4 full due to parent interest, enrollment. So we have 4 full-day kindergartens this year at the IGO. And these positions were already implemented in FY17 because of enrollment. As a result, we took the space we thought we were going to dedicate to the half-day program, we moved that over to the Taylor. Last summer, just before school started, we moved that half-day class to the Taylor Elementary School, which pools from the 3 schools of families who did not select the full-day paid option. All right, we are reducing 2 full-time equivalent elementary classroom teaching positions due to declining enrollment at the elementary level, which we've all been tracking, and there have been many years we've sat here and said a few fewer in each grade hasn't resulted in our ability to have large classes to save a teacher here or there, or maybe if we had 7 fewer third graders spread across 3 schools, it wasn't enough to really affect a reduction, but we actually are at that point now. So we will, due to declining enrollment and smaller class sizes at those grade levels, we're going to down to 2 third grades at the Borough. So we have a reduction of 1 third grade at the Borough and a 2nd grade at Taylor.
So this will allow us to maintain the reasonable class sizes
Yes.
that we have been told over and over and over again
Absolutely.
through parent
Yep.
surveys are one of the top 3 priorities.
Yes,
of
they're in
parents.
those sections now. So last year, we decreased 1 second grade at Borough, for example.
Thank you.
So we conduct a really close class size analysis across all grade levels, departments, courses at the high school, and we sit and we look at every single one. How many kids are in different sections, who's enrolled in courses, where can positions or things be combined. So we do get that data and we look at it really carefully every year, and we wouldn't be sitting here already in December confidently saying we can reduce 2 elementary classrooms if we weren't sure about it, but we're sure. On the other hand, we have reason to believe that with the elimination of the elimination of the tuition in kindergarten should have a tie to our need for full-day kindergartens. So we're anticipating that we will increase 1 FTE teacher and 1 educational assistant, because we put an educational assistant in every kindergarten at the Taylor Elementary School. So where they have 2.5 right now, they will hopefully have 3 sections. Everything depends on enrollment. We have a good idea of enrollment by late spring, but often we don't really have good numbers until July. A lot of families move in time for school. It's kind of one of those things that we always have some summer adjustments to make, but we should have a pretty good idea by late spring. And that's really based on the elimination of the half-day program and dependent on the elimination of free full-day kindergarten. We, same with the Borough. So we have, we plan to have 1 more section of Borough, of kindergarten at the Borough School, subject to enrollment in the spring. So those are the 2, we're pretty sure of the numbers for the IGO. They've been very, very consistent and predictable. The numbers at the Borough and the Taylor are less consistent and predictable. But where we have 4.5 sections, well, actually, no, we have 5 sections, whether they go all day. We have 5 sections between those 2 small schools. We think with the elimination of kindergarten, of the tuition, we'll probably have 6. So, we'll see. And then Bill will talk to you when we get to the specifics of the budget. We have some small expense adjustments in places that we need it, and that certainly has been very thoughtful on our part and Bill's part, because we have kept expenses level funded for many, many years. So if we're coming to you saying this might be the time we just squeak up some of the expenses, that's certainly after a lot of thought. We have service contracts that go up, supply, maintenance, utility, fuel costs, and Bill will give you some detail about that.
Yeah, before we come off the slide, I think it's very important on the reasoning why we're carrying the additional kindergarten is because, again, our budget cannot be adjusted up. So if we were to right now say that we're going to take a guess that we're not going to need that additional classroom, and we go forward with that, then that's what you're going to have, because that's all we can do at town meeting. So at least if we preserve it in the budget, and we get a better view before we get to town meeting, then, we can deal with it. If we don't, we can obviously deal with it afterwards as far as going back to the general fund, at the end.
If we don't have enough for a sixth kindergarten class, we're not going to have one.
Absolutely not.
And we won't have the position.
But
of
it's
the
not,
teacher.
this is not like an unreasonable huge, so if, sometimes we give so much detail, you lose the big picture, so
Right.
I'll tell you that. So we've had 10 sections of kindergarten in the past. Now we have 9. Currently, we have 9 sections of kindergarten. So it's not unreasonable to think that if we eliminate tuition and get more kids, that we go back to the 10 sections that we used to have. If we don't, we'll have 9 sections, and we'll recommend not, taking that position out of the budget.
Okay.
I think the other point, just to reiterate what you did say, Debbie, but because, budget's always on top of everyone's mind this time of year, we sometimes read from a very small minority of the public in the paper that, the schools just keep adding people and adding people and adding people. And I think what you said was that you and Bill go through school by school, grade by grade, and where appropriate, you reduce.
Yes.
And I just think that's an important, again, summary statement of all the information that you share for this particular chart.
Yeah, and we would actually like to address, because you do read that generically, like why do we keep having these position increases? But I don't know if you want to do it tonight or wait till January, maybe January.
I think we can do it January. I'll bring in
Yeah,
a full presentation towards it, which would
Right.
be much more
So
informative.
we actually had thought amongst our discussion that if we made that a highlight of the second discussion here at this table in January, because just to front load a little bit, yes, have there been position increases if you're just looking at number A and number B? Yes, but don't forget, many of those positions are now shared by the town but held by us.
Right.
Doesn't mean increased services to us, they just happen to be on our payroll. We also have more kindergarten expansion, so where 10 years ago, full-day kindergarten didn't exist, so you could have 4 or 5 teachers teaching half-days, have your 10 sections, you're paying 4.5 teachers, 4.5 ed assistants. Now, if you want to have 10, so let's say 5. Now, if you want to have 10, you're paying 10 teachers and 10. So there's a +5 ed assistants and teachers. So there's a +10 right there. Just the expansion of full-day kindergarten, which has been paid for by tuitions and grants, not by the locally funded funds, if you will. So there's so many reasons that are concrete, and we can point to them, and we'd like to really explain those increases. So if positions, let's say, have increased by 20, well, 10 of them are in kindergarten, with the addition of our full-day program. So we have all of that data. We can track every single position and what's happened back as far as you want to go. So I think we should do that.
Yeah, and I think
it would be beneficial.
I think the point is, we're a small enough town
Right.
that the analysis that, maybe we talked about wanting to have when the selectmen were here, of being able to go down departmentally through your department, we actually do that.
Absolutely.
Not only do you both do that, but then we look at it as a subcommittee. So I just want to say, as a summary statement, that if you want to look at it grade by grade, building by building, we're able to do that, and we do it.
We do it. We, even at the high school, where it's the most complex, I would say, we look at teachers' schedules, teachers' loads, whether everybody's, distributed the way it's supposed to be, and what are they teaching, and when, and how, and so we look at absolutely everything.
And that's a lot more complicated than I think a lot of people realize, because you have to look at the type of course you're teaching too.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're teaching something that's in a special needs area, you would expect to have a smaller classroom size. If you're teaching something that might be on a very high-end, technically challenging engineering and stuff like that, where you can only do so much in a classroom at a time, you're not expecting to have large classes in that area. But you're maybe in the English classroom, and you could have a larger class size in it because of the ability to teach on a standard base. So it's really, it's not like looking at first grade where first grade's first grade. It's really looking at a building that has so many offerings, and then going down and having to make value judgments as to what does work for the educational program.
Right. I think the high school does a really great job drilling down like that. So if you remember a couple of years ago, well, even now, so if let's say there was a huge enrollment in the social studies electives, tend to be pretty popular. So a couple of years ago, we had 2 social studies electives we still wanted to run, but the social studies department was so busy, so they said, we're going to have two English teachers each teach 1 social studies elective, so that those run, and we can do it by increasing by a little bit the sections of English and and that's what we did. So they come with solutions.
Civil liberties and law and contemporary issues.
You had who?
Was it civil liberties and law and contemporary
Yeah.
issues, those 2 electives?
Right.
because I took both of those, and it was, I think, the first year we had an English teacher teaching them.
Yeah.
Mr. Powers and Miss Geffers.
Correct.
So exactly, yeah.
Yep, and now we're trying to push them back. I mean, when we want to push them back into the department. And I think we've now effectively done that. But the same thing happened when Mr. Callahan went to teach communication arts classes. He was in social studies. Now he's crossing over to teach something that's more in the English department. So we're able to accomplish that using the people that we have, and not, the high school's great at that. So I don't just come and say, well, I need a .4 social studies teacher now because the kids are interested. So they don't come with an ask, they come with a solution. So,
Excellent.
pretty good.
We have good faculty.
All right, so let's see, what is driving incremental costs? Well, as we mentioned before, the higher number of out-of-district placements of special education, we have had a significant increase in that. We're currently budgeted for 27 out-of-district placements. We do anticipate about 30 next year. I don't think it'll be any surprise to anyone who works in education, public education particularly, that we are a little bit more challenged, especially in needs of mental health and social emotional adjustment, and the need for therapeutic environments beyond what we can provide.
And that's not a Foxborough comment, that's an industry comment.
It's across the country. It is the topic across the country.
So while we'd love to see our costs stay down and not have these special needs costs, everywhere, not just Foxborough, everywhere, every town has these issues.
Right. And what we're seeing is that the outplacements are not about academic need. Whereas maybe a generation ago, it'd be like, well, this child has a severe learning disability, those aren't the kind of placements we do anymore. Our programs have really built up quite strongly in that area. So we're seeing in areas that we don't have enough expertise in, or can't provide that level of
support.
Yeah.
But when you look at, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but I know this has been an interest, again, a topic of interest lately, but you know, when you stop and say, as we all do as taxpayers, wouldn't it be nice to have our costs not be increasing? And you compare the past to the present, and the number of students may be the same. The requirement that's on us now to educate the special needs is different than what it was in the past. So we don't have a choice.
And the federal law that's a good point, because the federal law has also changed to expand and encompass more identified diagnoses that didn't exist a generation or half a generation ago, because we didn't know enough. Now we're better able to really identify the needs of students, and that's a good thing. It costs more, but it's a good thing that we're better able to meet kids' needs. So that's also happened in the world of special education too, is expanded diagnoses and things that we must adjust.
Yeah, and the other side of that is we're also seeing, on average, about a 5% increase in the tuition costs on an annual basis, which do have to get approved by the state, but the state seems to be fine approving them for the last couple of years. So, again, that rate of increase is higher than any rate of increase we have in our internal budget, and it's on a large number. So it's, again, not something we can control. We do our best to place children in the appropriate settings. And obviously, at times we have options, so we're looking at different locations and different things, whichever we feel is the best for the child. That's what we try to work with the parents and get the child there. But, the other side of that is there's two components to that. It's the transportation as well as the outplacement. And in some cases, the transportation can be almost as much on a daily basis when you get done with the educational thing, because you have to get them to a certain place. And obviously, let's understand that the 27 or 30 kids that are going to be going aren't going to Walpole. They're going all over the state of of Massachusetts, some down to Providence, one into Connecticut. So it really is program based. To Deb's point, it's specific needs that you're trying to address.
And obviously, the associated transportation costs will increase the more kids you have out. We do also fund their transportation under the law. We do a lot of cost sharing, though. I know that the special education department will do a good job. If there are two students going to a program in Dedham and they're from Mansfield and Foxborough, there'll be some transportation sharing to keep the numbers down as well. We've already talked about the kindergarten tuition phase out. We have 9 bargaining units, and all of those are successfully negotiated. So this is the first year for 6 out of the 9. This is year 1 of the contract. So year 2 salaries is very easily calculable, and next year will be the same for year 3. I don't think much has changed, but we have recurring costs for software, network licensing, and bandwidth requirements. So nothing's really changed.
This kind of gives you a view of what the history has been on the school budget. And again, as you can see, the increase over the last, this is probably the smallest increase we've had in the last 5 years. Percentage-wise, obviously, dollar-wise, it's very similar. Again, without any real program changes or incremental increases in other areas besides some of the expense areas, it really, we've done the best we can to hold this back down in a number that we think is as reasonable as possible.
So, first few years you see up there, obviously, were when we were coming out of the economic downturn, I will say. And then this is the lowest, in the last 5 years, the lowest increase that we've requested.
That's worth repeating. Lowest increase in the last 5 years.
5 years. Lowest percentage increase. Enrollments, I think it is what it is. We're down a few students. We'll be down a couple more next year, and in all likelihood, but not by more than, we don't think by more than 10.
Yeah, and you could say, obviously, we do anticipate a small increase on the kindergarten side, that we're only accounting for about 5 at this point. The middle school will actually go up because of the class coming in from grade 4 is larger than the class going out. But on the high school side, the class coming in from the middle school is much smaller than the outgoing class, so that's why you have the change there. And then, the out-of-district being what it is. Again, just a kind of a summary of the staffing changes. In total, elementary ed teachers up 0.5, which is in kindergarten.
I'm sorry. We should have, these should be out. The parentheses in the middle line should be out. That was last year.
Oh, yeah.
There's no
you're
plus.
right.
It's all no change.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
So take those out?
My proofreading failed me. Yes, these two have nothing to do with, you see it says no change. The no change in this column is correct. We were so careful on the right column, we didn't look in the middle column. But anyway.
That's all right.
So sorry about that. So the elementary regular ed teachers, because of the growth in the full day K, will be up a half. We have the reduction of 2, and then we're going up 2.5. Regular ed teachers, middle, high school, special education teachers, no change in FTEs at all. Middle school special ed, no change. High school special ed, no change. So you can see the migrating population of students will be down at assistant at the elementary level, but we will be up 4 at the middle school. We had 2 move-ins. We have 1 coming up from 4th grade, and we had 1 with an increased IEP this year. That's 4.
So those are all driven by student needs.
Current students we have that we know about that have IEPs that require an educational assistant. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have less of a need for educational assistance at the high school, so there'll be a reduction of 1.5 there. And district-wide staff, there's no change at all. Okay. So the net of all of that is 2. Most being, well, actually, except for half, it's really in the area of educational assistants, not teachers.
Major components, as far as the overall increase, $680,000 is coming from the salary side of things. And again, as offsets, one of the issues that's coming out of that is that, again, as a net number, we have to reduce out $30,000 from the tuition revolver because that's no longer available to us. And the K grant was eliminated before, so now we're down those 2 components from a revenue offset. From the expense side, it's appearing as a $439,934 increase. However, it's very important to understand that the actual expenses aren't going up that. If you look at the very bottom of the sheet, you've got $188,000 that is just reductions in revolving accounts, grants, circuit breakers that are no longer available to us. So that part didn't increase the expenses, it just is no longer available to net it out against. And as we've already talked, our largest increase really is in the 6 or 7 components you see here. Elementary materials in total going up by 5,200 across all 3 buildings. High school, the extracurricular student leadership and other programs going up by 6. The athletics for the hockey program, training services, and other supplies is going up by 11,594. But I'll give you an example on that. The single largest component of that is ice time, which has gone up $4,800 in 1 year. So it is an expensive proposition to be into, but it's one that we control because it's not our facility. And then our training services, we've contracted out, but there are increases in that over the next 3 years as well. So those are in that number as well. Very important, obviously, with our concussion issues and others at this point to make sure we maintain that. And again, that relationship has retained at the Brigham and Women's in Foxborough, which is very advantageous to us. The out-of-district transportation and tuitions, again, are the largest component of this, $177,699 increase. Technology, software, hardware, network training, most of this is actually in the licensing side of things, about $30,000. Medco transportation cost, $22,500. And then contracted tuition reimbursements, again, for our educational assistants and our teachers as part of the negotiations, going up by $7,000. So those are all of the items that actually exceed $2,000 in total, as far as an increase on the expense side. And again, unfortunately, with the loss of, or the reduction in the circuit breaker availability. Circuit breaker, just so you understand how that's developed, basically, what they do is your first, in this year, it was $43,700. The town pays. Anything that goes over that, including transportation, the state will reimburse you in the following year 70%. When you have students that are outplaced into residential programs, which could be, let's say, as much as $200,000 a year, obviously, you're getting a larger portion of 70% than if you have a number of students that are in programs that might be at $45,000 plus transportation, because the 70% is on a much smaller number that you're going to get out of it. But so what happened is we went from about $577,000 down to $466,000 based on last year's placements, where they were. Even though we had more kids, the calculation didn't work in our favor last year, so we'll only have $466,000 to spend this coming year. And so I think that floats from year to year. As you also know, we retain 1 year's balance to give us a safety net. This is the only place that the school has as a way or a place to go, that if we were to have a move-in or a child all of a sudden brought onto an IEP that we were not aware of, which that's unusual because we usually have most of our children from pre-K on. We're tracking them and we know where we're going. But this is what the reserve on that circuit breaker is the place we could go in the year. It would hurt us in a future year down the road, but at least we can go there without having to go back to the town and say that we can't survive this hit. And then as far as the revolving accounts, one of the biggest issues that when I first got here 5 years ago, the agreement we had with the town, a lot of the revolving accounts had gotten very large over a period of time. One of them was a tuition revolver where, when Spoke closed down, a large balance that they owed us came back into that. And what the town was looking for us to do was bring those balances all back down. So the agreement we had was we'd bring them all down to within 1 year's balances so that we always had that 1 year cushion. And so we've been really hitting the tuition accounts. We were hitting one of the tuition accounts by $180,000 a year. It was only bringing in $100. So now that account is actually all the way back down. It's actually we've gone under. We're a little bit further below than we were intending to go. But that's the biggest hit we're taking, about $60,000 on that line alone, backing off the revolvers. Now all the revolvers are down to the level that we agreed with the town about 4 years ago that we would get them to. But by doing it over a period of time, instead of dropping it all in 1 year and then the next year saying, okay, now you have to give us back X amount of dollars, this was a way of kind of gradually bringing it down, and the town felt comfortable with that.
I really think that's a great example, though, of the school-town shared budget philosophy and why we meet about budget forecasting outside of this whole budget process with the town side. So, if 5 years ago that was the philosophy that we need to look at all the revolving accounts in town, and we hold many of them, if that's the philosophy we're all going to agree to, is just hold 1 year in your rainy day funds, then we had some work to do. So I think that's a great example of when people say budget, what's a budget philosophy? Like shit, that's a great example of it, that it's not just about your budget going forward or how much money you're gonna ask for. It's really what is the philosophy of budget management and resource management, actually. So I think we're there now.
Yeah, we are there, unfortunately.
Bill, can I just go back to that chart for 1 second?
Sure.
So I think just again to summarize, and I think I do this every year, but it's probably because when I first came in, I didn't easily follow all the numbers, right? So I mean, just to summarize, I mean, there are to me, this is my interpretation, there are 3 major categories of expense, increased expense contribution. One is reduced state funding and circuit breaker change, which you just explained. The second, working from top to bottom, is the special education requirements, which we've talked at length about. And the third, and by far the biggest, is the salaries, which we haven't spent a lot of time on, so I want to just spend an extra minute on that.
Sure.
You know, we spent last year hours negotiating, and Debbie mentioned it on an earlier chart, 9 contracts, where the average increase, just for, again, for public reminder, this is all public information, is what, Bill? 2% maybe?
Yep.
So it's tough when you're a school system and you're looking at budget season and you look at all these salaries. And I think I read something from the selectmen meeting about maybe we shouldn't pay top-end salaries anymore, hire top people, which philosophically I'm not sure I agree with anyway, especially in education. But even, I won't argue that. I guess I would make the point that at 2% increase, I think we're doing the due justice and spending enough time negotiating to walk the very fine line of maintaining a staff that is continuous, without a lot of churn, that's committed, that's passionate, at an average 2% increase salary. So would it be nice if they all agreed to work for free and we didn't have to, you know, raise our costs? Sure. But I just wanted to remind the public that when you look at this chart, that's one of the top 3 expense drivers. But I believe we've spent tremendous amount of time getting that to a very reasonable number.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, if you just did the simple math, you have a $30 million payroll, 2% on that's gonna get you at 600,000, and then the ancillary things of someone maybe moving an educational lane, you know, or, you know, somebody else coming in at a different level. But, you know, most of it is in that strict 2%. So we don't have a lot of lane moves. Obviously, everybody has the right to move a step down, but that's incorporated in here as well. So your average is really just slightly over 2% in your percentage, so.
And if you're a parent, or even if you're not a parent, but you're a property holder, do you want to have non-competitive or non-happy teaching staff in your schools?
Oh, no.
I mean,
I personally don't.
So we do a great job scrutinizing this. I think it's important we do that, but I also think it's important to look at the big picture, which is sustainability of the quality of Foxborough education.
Absolutely.
I think that's a good point, and I think it shouldn't be lost either that we do have nine collective bargaining units, and we always wrap them up on time. So
And we didn't pay any legal fees.
And we don't really pay legal fees. We don't involve our school attorney. We don't spend money on that if we don't have to. We ask for an opinion on a couple of wording items, and that's about it. So I think, you know, I think that speaks to also the good faith that our bargaining units come to the table with, that they want, you know, we have good people here, and they want to do the best they can. We want to do the best we can to incentivize them to stay and keep the good things going, but yet not go to a point where the town can't afford it. So I think we've been able to do a good job with that, where not everybody is happy enrolling in it, you know, in that way, but I think everybody's satisfied at the end. And that's a lot of bargaining units that we do have,
And that's a long, arduous process.
it is, especially if you're doing 6 in one
Having been there
3-month
through a few of them.
But I also think it's important that, you know, when we sat down with the town last year and asked for the negotiating strategy as to what they, you know, were expecting from us, they said 2% was the limit that we should be looking at, and we were successful in doing that.
Good point.
So I think from our perspective, we played the game exactly the way we were asked to do it. It wasn't easy in some of the positions, but it also, you know, we knew exactly where we were going to be coming in as far as this year would go and what had to be sold to the town. So I think we we did a very good job, and I thank the unions for working with us, and I think then in the end they understood exactly, because obviously we didn't meet all their needs as far as they were concerned in the increases. So I think.
True.
And that's why I refer to it as a long, arduous process, because, you know, they come in with a whole lot of interests, and we don't live up to all of those. We agree not to for budgetary reasons.
Right.
But in the end, it comes out where both sides are happy, and that's the balance we strive to achieve. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Again, just to the outside resources that I spoke of earlier, this is kind of a summary that shows you the difference between FY17 and FY18. As I said, we're about 110,000 less in what we're going to have available to us on the revolving accounts. The reason you saw 80 on the sheet before was 80s in expenses, 30s up in salaries, and that's 110 in total. The grants, very close, assuming we get everything. Obviously, the one place we have a risk there is the Title I, and that's because that part of the formula is based on your, I guess, poverty level is the way we refer to it as. And we're teetering right on the edge on that. If we stay at this level. If we actually reduce, then we will lose, we could lose as much as, I guess,
$70,000
$70,000
if we lose.
Right. But we're kind of hoping or betting on the fact that we'll stay consistent at this point. And then circuit breaker, as I said, 575 last year, 466,000 in FY18. And the reason we can be so certain on those numbers is that number actually is what's been certified into us already from last year, 466. So.
The other message on this page is that we obviously have fewer outside resources to depend on, yet we're still up only the 3.5% overall.
Yeah.
So I think that is related to what our overall request is. So yes, we have fewer outside resources to depend on, but we're managing the rest of it, which is why you see the salary percentage growing from 80 to more than 80, because we're definitely paring down all the other areas and keeping the salary increases still reasonable, but we have fewer outside resources to depend on, and we know it. The famous pie chart. Looks just about the same.
Actually, percentage-wise, it's identical. I compared it to last year, and each line, and it was fractions of a percentage point off. So where athletics is actually 1.8, it was like 1.79 last year. So each one of these is just, inches off from where they were before, but the pie stays basically the same.
Some years instruction is 59% instead of 58.
Well, you know what that reflects, though?
Sometimes special it's 24.
What that reflects is we're in balance on our requirements, right? We're not getting hit with some major surprise or, so, I like seeing instruction being by far, the biggest expense. I think special ed being the second is indicative of all the discussion we've had. And the rest, you can quibble, I guess, about 3% in transportation, but I just know to the extent to which that is managed even. So, to me, it's, I don't know, do you look, as a teacher, do you look at that and see anything that you're surprised by?
No, just the central administration one.
Being 3%?
Being 3%, yeah.
You would think it would be higher?
No, I would think it'd be lower.
And that's primarily what, salary?
Yeah. That's basically all
Central.
district-wide.
It includes a lot of things.
Yeah,
It includes anything that's centralized.
Right.
It's not just central administration.
Right.
It's anything centralized, including school committee expenses. Anything centralized is central administration.
Right.
Our business office functioning, all of that is all included.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Comparably to other communities, that's actually a lower number than what we're seeing, at least around us, so.
So we're in good stead.
Yeah. Next steps. So obviously, we continue to review this between now and to your final vote on January 23rd, not only from you and your opinions and questions, Obviously, we'll hear from the AdCom during this time, and we'll also hear in having discussions, additional discussions with our administrative team. You know, again, we know whatever gets settled out on January 23rd is the highest number we can be. And on our town meeting floor, that's, you know, can't be moved up, can only be moved down. You know, as far as your reviews, obviously, as Deb said, you had today, you'll have the 9th, and then again on the 23rd, when you have to vote. Obviously, your vote has to be before the end of January, so you still have the option of one more if anything came up and we had to meet again. We could meet January 30th and still perform the task needed. And then, you know, on February 1st, again, we will in front of the AdCom with our presentation as well.
I should note that we do have a couple AdCom members here listening and soaking up all our information. I want to thank you both for coming to take it all in. We appreciate it. We know how hard you work. Yeah, I know. This time of year, there's nothing to do. But thank you for coming and listening to this preliminary discussion. We appreciate it.
A lot of work. Thank you, Bill.
Yes, certainly appreciate all your hard work, and thank you to Bruce and to Marilyn for your deep dive down into the details of the budget and your input tonight.
Any questions tonight, or are there any particular areas you'd like, other than the increased staffing over the years, anything you'd like us to come back in January with additional information?
No, just the latest updates.
Okay.
I want to go through the additional information that you all handed out.
Sure.
I will let you know in between now and then if there's anything else I can think of, but I appreciate all the information.
Well, as always, if it's an individual question, we'll get it to you before the meeting. If it's something you want presented at the meeting, we can do that as well.
You know, we say this from time to time, but I always think it merits saying again, we're very fortunate to have Bill in this position. You know, as someone who works with school districts all the time, I've seen a lot of business managers. I think they're all very well intended. I don't know that they're all quite as thorough as Bill is. And as a school committee member, I think it makes our job easier. Not that we scrutinize any less, but everything that we could want is there and explained and spelled out. And Debbie made the point earlier that sometimes, you know, things get lost in all of the information that's generated, but I think Bill does a great job generating every view, every analysis, every year-to-year comparison. So I just want to publicly say thank you and appreciate it.
Explains it.
Well, I will
Totally.
second that, because when I sat down and went through everything over the weekend, I made a whole little laundry list of little questions, and I fired off a lengthy email to Bill, who answered everything by 10 o'clock this morning. He had very specific answers to all my questions, which is why I don't have them tonight.
Yeah, that was very
because
succinct.
I appreciated, there were good reasons for everything that I asked, so.
Well, and actually, that's one of the things I do appreciate when you guys do have the opportunity to ask your questions in advance, because what that allows me to do is go back into the detail of actually what we spent last year versus what we're budgeting for this year, looking at the vendors we paid and everything else like that. So in Tina's case, I had the ability to actually go right down and say, okay, this is what made up that cost in total. And obviously, that's recurring, but we're going to be looking at this. And so I think that's a little easier than when I have just some papers in front of me that I'm trying to answer questions off of, and I'm more than happy to do that.
To Bruce's point, when I look at a budget that you've prepared, I have a lot of faith and confidence in the data behind the numbers. Sometimes I just want to know what it is, but I know that it's not a random number, that there is backup and support for everything.
Literally look at everything every year, all of our subscriptions, all of our agreements, and we go right down the list, like, is this worth $2,050? Is that worth? And we go right down everything, saying we're still going to be using it, because we're small enough, to Bruce's point, that we don't just keep these things going, and then years down the line, somebody says, oh, we haven't been using that for a number of years. So we look at stuff every year, and we ask people to justify why we have it. Are people using it? We ask for usage, and we make sure that what we're buying, we actually are using.
And actually, when you look at the detail sheets on the technology budget, Deb brought this up before, we didn't quite go into it. But on the technology budget, over the last couple of years, I've tried to consolidate out of all of the schools into the technology budget specific things that we do on a district-wide basis And this year, I think I got the last few out and brought over into the technology, so that when you see the line that looks like it's gone up by quite, well, it has gone up by quite a bit as far as the licensing line.
Yeah.
A good portion of that was actually pulled out of all of the schools for two of the programs that we relicense every year, Galileo and
Discovery Ed. Things like that.
So, but the reason I want to do that, to Deb's point, is when we now look at the technology budget, you can look at the dozen items that are underneath that, whether it's the Microsoft Office Suite license renewal and what it costs, what Destiny costs, and every year when we're looking at that, instead of having to go find pieces of it all over the district, we're looking at one number saying, do we still use this? If we don't use this, we know what the total cost of this is. Let's see what resource that should be really used for,
Exactly.
or let's just eliminate that cost.
The
And by
numbers,
doing
when they're
that, over
spread
the last
among
couple of years,
schools.
we've actually taken out a number of things
have.
that we were renewing that just, no one could see the need for now, because we had brought in new alternatives for those resources. But it was, again, it was much easier to see when you're
When the
looking at it
pieces
in
of
one
it,
place.
and every building likes its own control, but when you have pieces of it spread across schools, it doesn't look like that much.
Right.
But to Bill's point, he now consolidated, so we took the last pieces, and I said to him this, now why are we pulling those last pieces out and put it in? He said, and I'm gonna remember actually his phrase, he said, because you put it all in one place, generate the
know where
list,
it
we can
is,
bring it to an admin meeting, go down. He said, if you put it all in one place, it'll poke your eye out. In other words, like, you'll see it and say, whoa, is that what we wanna do? So it just calls attention to itself when it's all in one place. And then we're more thoughtful about whether we're using it and whether it's worth that amount for us. So it's been good for us to start consolidating those things and know exactly what we're spending on types of services or types of subscriptions, rather than just leave it to different buildings. So it's been educational for me. Tell you that much. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you for putting together the staffing positions. I think that'll be a very helpful
Yep.
analysis. And certainly the technology budget, reflects that as well. I know we'll have a little bit more discussion on that in January. But that part of the budget, I think you can see, we have added full-time positions in the technology area, but that has a great benefit across our school system, and we've seen it over and over again in our teaching and learning highlights, and including tonight's, where our instructional technology is being used to its maximum potential. But it is because we have added our technology integration specialists, who are not classroom teachers, so class size, et cetera, doesn't affect that position, but it does impact our school system in a very, very positive way, and is well worth the money spent, in my opinion. So we'll talk a little bit about that more in January.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Alex, did you have any questions?
Nope, budget looks good to me.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Debbie, for that. And
All right, so
we are moving on to the FY more budget. FY17 budget update. Mr. Yugna.
I know I said this, but we're kind of in the lull of the year because it's too early to harvest some of, things on utilities and things like that, or to be concerned whether or not we're under on those. And so really there's only two changes that are happening on this one, and they're both on page 6 under transportation and plant operations. As we've already discussed, the next year's budget for Medco Transportation is going to be higher. Well, this year's actual cost is higher than what we had budgeted for. And in order, fortunately at this point, because we did have a retirement under the maintenance department, and even if we are able to hire, by the time we hire, the savings in this area will be about $20,000 because it takes a number of months, obviously, to get through the process. So it's almost an offset between the two. We're losing a little, but as you can see, even with those two adjustments at the end of the budget, we're still about $2,300 better than what we had projected. And again, I think we obviously are always looking for ways to make sure a shortfall can be covered. So if it means that we have to hold off on doing something, we hold off on doing it. This is how we did it.
Yeah, we never find ourselves in trouble at the end of the year. But we've made promises and okay.
That's because
Now we know who the conservative people are.
Bill is at the helm.
We regroup. So far, we've never found ourselves in trouble in here. But I think it's because of that, because we don't let those small amounts say,
right.
well, gee, we're gonna go over that, where's that gonna come from? So we always have an idea of where we can try to make some cost savings so that we can at least get close and know that we're not going, what's made of wood this? Okay, there we go.
That's what.
I think I'm good now.
Motion to approve the budget update as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the budget update? 400, none opposed. Thank you, thanks, Bill. Our next item is the Strategic Planning Committee commencing in spring of 2017. We need two
These
school
3
committee
years have
reps.
gone by awfully fast.
They really have.
So our strategic plan will expire, if you will, in June of 2017, which means a few months prior, we get going again, and it's usually a good opportunity to take a fresh look at the schools and see where we want to go in the next 3 years. So, looking forward to getting started around February.
Okay. It has been I've worked on the last 2 strategic plans, and it has been a wonderful and rewarding experience. I found it very interesting and a great learning experience for me. You work with the committees made up of the school committee, staff, administrators, and
Town.
parent, community
parent
representatives.
community representatives.
And it's always a really great collaboration. Having worked on the last 2, I kind of feel like some fresh ideas or new ideas, new eyes might be warranted. So I know Chris has expressed some interest in participating in the Strategic Planning Committee. Marilyn has as well. She's not here. I actually have heard that she is watching at home. And I know, Bevy, you've participated with me the last 2 times.
Well,
I know there's
I
value in continuity, and there's also value in new participation. So.
Marilyn did
Marilyn did as
participate
well
last
as a
one, but
parent, that's
I
right.
have participated in a minimum of 3 as a school committee member. So perhaps we need another perspective, I think. Plus the ones that when I was working within the system.
Oh, that's right. When we used
So maybe we've had, I think it might be time for somebody else to step in and do this
Well,
round.
we do get to review the strategic plan
Oh,
and have
absolutely.
comments on the draft strategic plan at the table. So it,
And
actually
we could,
do
approve
get
it in the
input, and
end.
then we input. Yeah, then we do.
I mean,
approve
we
it,
could
so.
give input along the way, too. I mean, if we really saw a need, what we perceived as a need, so that it could be discussed.
I'd like the motion that we nominate Chris and Marilyn, if they're willing, to serve as our representatives.
I'll second that.
Well, Chris, before we vote on that motion, do you have anything you want to add, or are you interested in? You said you were, but I want to
I'm
make
interested.
sure. Before.
What are the times that they usually meet?
Well, usually late afternoon,
Okay.
because we do have people coming from industry, some parents, and so, I mean, I think we've done like, what did we do last time, 3:30 to 5 maybe, or?
Okay,
Or
that
even
works.
later.
It was later.
Is it? It's
I was
been,
gonna say, I think it was later
evening.
than that.
well, we've had,
Well, no, it was,
Night.
it was into dinner time, though.
Yeah.
it was
late,
into
so
dinner time
maybe
to
We could do 4:30 to 5, or 4.
4:30 to 6.
Let's say
or-
4-ish.
Yeah, three on is good.
Yeah,
All right, so-
was
but
after
it
school
has to be,
afternoon.
it has to be late afternoon
I
to
thought we did
include.
3:30 to 5:30, but I could be wrong. Because, don't forget, we gotta get out in time to get to all of our evening activities, because that's, I call the second part of my day.
Late afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always late afternoon, definitely after school hours,
All
because
right,
we want
yeah.
time for staff to get there. If we don't want to start it too late either, because the staff members that are on it,
Right.
high school gets out at 2, elementary gets out at 3, so you don't want to start so late that they have nothing to do for hours
Right.
and hours, and it makes it hard for them. and
I've
their
never known a
families as well.
teacher who has nothing to do for hours and hours.
Well, you know what I mean. You know, it's hard to hang around that long, so. I'm
That's
gonna
good,
guess a
quiet
3:30 or
work
4
time.
start, ending by 6.
Okay.
No teachers in the Foxborough school system, anyway.
That's true.
So we have a motion to nominate Chris and Marilyn as our school committee representatives to the Spring 2017 Strategic Planning Committee. We have a second.
Let's just say
I did.
motion to appoint.
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 And
I'll correct my wording.
By consensus, our new members of this team are.
So all those in favor of Chris and Marilyn being on the Strategic Planning Committee? All right, that's 400. Marilyn, if you're watching at home, you're up.
Congratulations, Marilyn.
Happy to have you both, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, now we're moving on to acceptance of donations.
Yes.
Nellie?
Oopsie. I know it says plural, but I actually only have one. Initially, we thought we had two, but one was actually to one of our PTOs. So this is actually a donation from our very generous Igo Elementary School PTO. And they are donating $750 to purchase volleyball nets for the Igo gym, new volleyball nets. So very much appreciate, they're always very generous. And so that is our donation.
Do we have a motion to accept with gratitude?
Oh, Chris, you better jump right in on this one.
I had a question on this
Certainly.
one. So on the quote from Gopher, the total was $1695.33.
Yeah.
So is this covered?
I
in
assumed
another
that
way?
this was half of the total for the nets. That was, or, this is their contribution.
The other
and
portion's coming out of the
other
Igo,
portion was coming out of the budget.
operating budget.
Yeah.
So this is something they identify, that is a good, see, sometimes when we're into it, we know exactly what's happening, it just goes right over. But yes, those of us who aren't living with this every day, so that's a need they establish, they don't have that kind of money for equipment in individual school budgets, so the PTO is coming forward.
Contributing.
So that it can get done
Excellent.
now and not with the hopes of maybe some end of the year money we can contribute, so they're on the ball earlier than we would be able to provide something of that expense.
All of our PTOs are very
Thanks.
generous
They
with
are,
contributing where there are little shortfalls and making things happen on a expedited basis.
Exactly.
So that the kids get the best of whatever they need, recess buckets or volleyball nets. So we thank our hardworking
Thanks for
PTO
asking me
parents.
to look again at that. I was
And
like,
that's
oh yeah,
that
that's
is a
right,
good
wait a minute, they're not funding the whole thing.
And I'll make a motion that we accept the $750 for the volleyball nets with gratitude.
Thank you, Chris. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Bruce. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? 400. Thank you. All right. Moving on to other matters. Mrs. Spinelli?
Well, I'll start globally, and then I'll end locally. How's that? I'm going to be inspired by our high school students. So I'll go with global appeal and then local impact. So I put in the informational matters
Oh,
for
I
the
know.
school
This was
committee, as
exciting.
I'm sure Chris knows. So the PISA, which is the international test, it covers English. It covers reading, science, and mathematics. And representatives from randomly selected groups from each state, in different high schools, contribute to the United States scores. And this is the only international exam that basically measures each country against other countries. So once again, Massachusetts is one of only two states in the nation that chooses to pay a little extra to be considered its own country. So if Massachusetts didn't do this, for example, then the only results we'd have is the United States results, and we're a pretty large country. So when it comes to looking at where the United States falls internationally, it's not such a good news story. Our Commonwealth, which has the highest standards in the nation, I don't think that's disputed anymore by any measure, and we take it seriously that we know that we're achieving to high levels. So getting that extra bit of considering Massachusetts a country tells us exactly how we're doing internationally, despite how the rest of the United States may be doing as an average. So just to sum up the press release of December 6th from the Commissioner's Office, and also includes some quotes by the Governor, that Massachusetts students' reading and science scores place the state in a league with the top scoring nations in the world. If Massachusetts were a nation, it would share the top spot in reading with 8 other nations worldwide.
So exciting.
Yes. In science, the state students and those from 10 other nations came in second, and we trailed only the students from Singapore in science. In math, though, 11 other nations were ahead of the Commonwealth, and as you know, the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, is done triennially. And it assesses how well 15-year-old students do applying their knowledge and skills. So there's a nice quote from Governor Baker: "Thrilled to see Massachusetts students rank among the top performers in the world in reading, math, and science." Side note by the superintendent: public education is doing very, very well in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Note to all of us. So Some other things is that I wanted to mention, if you look at the fourth paragraph down, it says a random representative sample of approximately 1,600 students from 49 Massachusetts public high schools took the 2-hour computer-based PISA test between September and November 2015. We were one of the randomly selected Massachusetts high schools. So our great results for Massachusetts are in no small part due to our Foxborough High School students here. Because we had
And
no.
the freshmen nonetheless.
Yes. You what?
And the freshmen nonetheless, 15-year-olds.
Exactly. So it does speak to the quality of education in our whole district. So good point. You gave me a really good soundbite, Alex, that this really speaks to the strength of our entire educational program, K through high school. The challenge with PISA is that we know we contributed to the state results, but we don't get individual school results. That's my segue into the next thing in a second. So let's see. All right, so there's some specifics there. If people want to go, they can just go to the state Massachusetts Department of Education site, and if you just search PISA, P-I-S-A, you're able to read the same press release, and it has links to the actual PISA reports and the results, and it gives many other details in reading and science, many other details in sound bites, reading and science and mathematics. So that's all great news.
I like the part too where Massachusetts is higher in reading than the state average.
Oh, much. Than the country
right.
average. And
I know,
yeah.
and that it is it's higher than the other state in the U.S. that
absolutely
competed.
Yes, the other state that entered is about average. The other state that had themselves judged independently. So I think this is just another example that shows that Massachusetts really is at the top of its game internationally, not just nationally. As a segue, the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, is an intergovernmental organization of industrialized countries based in Paris, actually. So the OECD, that organization, administers PISA, which is the only international exam. The OECD last year decided to start offering individual high schools the opportunity to get data in a similar fashion.
Okay.
So they administer and assess the results for PISA, and the same Paris-based organization is now offering, they piloted it last year, and now they're expanding. They offered the opportunity for kids to engage again, like our kids participate in PISA, do the same thing again, except it's called the OECD test for schools. So it is based on the PISA assessment. It's available to individual districts, uses the same complex test questions similar to PISA, scored in the same scale. So while we were frustrated that we don't get results from the PISA participation, this is an opportunity to do just that. So again, schools will administer the test to a random sample of 15-year-old students to assess them in math, science, and reading compared to their peers in schools in the United States and many other countries. It tests the same thing PISA does, it assesses, I should say. Problem solving, critical thinking. There's a student survey question that gathers data about their attitudes, the school culture, their experiences in school, and then we would get a unique and valuable report about how our high school is doing and our students. It doesn't get individual student results, but it will tell you in general how well we as Foxborough Public Schools are preparing our schools for the global world and the global marketplace. So we've had a couple meetings about this with Mrs. Myers-Packla, Amy, and myself, and including a conference call with the commissioner a couple weeks ago, and we have decided to do it. So we're going to do that this spring. It's administered sometime, I think, between February and whatever. And we're going to expand our reach and get some more data that would otherwise not be available to us, to look at how we do worldwide and to see what kind of input it gives us, what insight does it give us as to our kids' experiences in school and kinds of things that we can learn. We do feel it's a minimal investment of time and resources. It would be only about 80 kids that it's given for. Let's see if I highlighted that exactly. 85 15-year-olds per school. So how it works, it is random again. PISA is random, the selection is random. So we would send them a list of all 15-year-olds. Could be sophomores, could be freshmen.
Age-based, not
It's
grade-based.
age-based, so that the whole world is compared accurately. So we would send them all of our kids who are the correct age according to the the pool, and then they randomly select the students. And then it's only about 2 hours of a testing. We think it could give us some really good information. February and June, this spring.
Does it have to be the exact number that were tapped, or can they decline and somebody else take their place? It's not on a volunteer.
No, it's 85 random students. So,
okay,
it's a stratified random sampling by gender and grade. So we can't gender load either, or grade load. So we've decided to do it. We're kind of excited about it. We expect to be, if they're correct, about 20 high schools in Massachusetts are interested in this. And we've done a little bit of research about it, and we can see why it'd give us some great information that we otherwise would have no access to, and we don't really see much of a downside, and we're not afraid of data and information. So I think it's interesting. What do you think?
I think at this point we're just showing off how good we are. I'm serious though, we are really up there.
Thank you. I think we are too. So it'll be interesting to see what we come up with. But I think it's a great opportunity for students too.
Bruce
to
and I
say,
each
you know,
have a 15-year-old, so we'll see. We'll
Oh,
see if
that's
they're
right.
randomly selected.
So if you get randomly selected, if you're an eligible student, you are selected, they will know going in why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they will know that these types of knowledge application and problem-solving tasks are what the world is expecting. So at the very least, you know what the world is expecting.
So it's
your
not a shock.
educational journey to be offering you at this time. So I think that's a really good opportunity for our kids too. Interesting.
We'll
So
look forward to hearing
we
the
signed up.
results afterwards.
And there is a grant from external organizations that pay for any expenses you have for training. So there's no cost. That's important. We're in budget night here. No cost to the district. There are many organizations and companies that are very interested in economic development in the world. And this is really from an economic development and cooperation organization. It's a nonprofit, and that's what they do worldwide. So, and a lot of it is looking at different economic status of different countries and seeing how their students do when it comes to student achievement. So I think it's just a whole new world of interesting information to mine that this is the way we'll get it. So I'm kind of excited about it.
All right. We will, again, look forward to hearing the results and the report on that. That's very interesting. Thank you.
I think
So
that's
that's globally.
exciting.
And locally, holiday concert was amazing last Thursday, I have to say.
I
And,
agree.
It's been great.
It always is.
It was amazing. And middle school, very successful concert as well. I heard great things about that. I wasn't able to go that evening. But I think, once again, our arts programs are burgeoning. We've had, this was also our elementary trimester. Parent conferences, report cards and conferences and everything have been happening. So I think everybody's working really hard, and I think we're all ready for a nice little winter break.
I think I would agree with you there. No, I'm a tad biased in the music department, but I have to say that the symphony orchestra's rendition of Sleigh Ride was just as good as the Pops. It was spectacular. So all of the ensembles were very, very good, but that was my
I didn't realize that was the
favorite.
first time the whole symphony orchestra were together on the stage. There's been pieces, but all of them, percussion, everything. I thought that was wonderful.
Bruce and I each had a trumpet player up there during that. So.
And you know the things going
Not to
on
brag,
in the little
right?
kids in the school. Oh, I just want to mention our cute little borough kindergartners went to the Doolittle home the other day.
That's wonderful.
And I hurried over to see them. That is the sweetest thing ever. Little kindergartners singing holiday seasonal songs to the senior citizens and the residents there, and clapping along, and they made beautiful placemats, and our little elves went and delivered it. I mean, that just speaks to our community, though, too. I mean, they did just a terrific job, and it's a great intergenerational community service.
It makes me so happy to hear that our students are there, because when my son was in preschool, his preschool teacher took them over to the Doolittle home once a month, and they sang. And when we were in Cub Scouts in elementary school, we went and sang Christmas carols, and the residents there truly love the interaction with the kids, and the kids benefit from the interaction with the people who live at the Doolittle home. So it's a win-win.
Totally.
And that's fantastic.
So all those good things are going on that I keep forgetting to mention, the little things, not just the public performances, but all the things that that actually every classroom has going on some really fascinating things.
Well,
right
that
now.
is really consistent with Burrell's school improvement plan too, which had an increased emphasis on community outreach and community service, and it's just
Exactly.
teaching kids at a very young age to connect with other people in the community. So I love.
So I enjoy those things. So Michelle
hear
called
that.
and said, meet
That's
me at the
great.
Doolittle.
That's fantastic.
You better believe it. It was it's so sweet. Actually brings a tear to my eye. So,
That's great.
so sweet. I think I have something else, and whatever I forget, Tina always remembers. So.
Well, you're having your coffee and conversation
Oh,
with the community
there you
tomorrow
go.
night.
Tomorrow
so
night.
I will serve that one up to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure there'll be a
At the,
at the Boyden Library.
and the
6:30.
6:30.
Yep, superintendent's community coffee. So I think we're going to be, as we did, we had actually a great discussion about our social emotional health programs at the daytime one, the people that like to come during the day. So I think we're going to kind of keep with the same topic for tomorrow night and talk about, as you see in the budget, we have more challenge in that area, but we're going to talk about what we are doing and how we're analyzing and studying what we're doing tomorrow night. So
I hope you get a good turnout. That'll be fantastic. Anything else?
you'll remember it, I'm sure.
Bevy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just whatever your faith is, wonderful holidays. In mine, I say Merry Christmas, but Happy New Year goes for everyone. May it bring blessings and health.
Alex, anything to add?
I'm all good.
I know you guys had your first debate competition.
Yes,
a
Sam
couple
did
weeks
very
ago.
well.
How'd it go
Sam
for
did
you?
very, very well.
Thank you.
One of the varsity teams is undefeated.
That's
that one's
awesome.
my team. And I've got a first-time member on it who's a senior who's never done it before. And he's doing very well as well.
It's very
And
exciting.
I think Sam's going to be at that level when he's a senior, almost definitely.
Well, I will tell him you said so.
Who's also on the same team as Dimitri,
Dimitri,
who's
yeah.
not here.
Yes, I read their comments. I'm pretty impressed myself, I gotta say. But thank you for your guidance there. Janet, do you have any? Bill?
Yeah, I do. I think, many have seen the different reports in the paper relative to water testing in different districts. And obviously, a lot of districts having some major problems with lead and copper levels. So I had all 5 buildings tested, and just to make sure that we weren't one of those schools that potentially had issues. The test results came back. As far as lead goes, we were almost non-existent in
great
all
to
the
hear.
buildings. We had one faucet that had less than half of what's allowed, so we were obviously still very good there. But what we think that is just a potential piping in that area, so we're just going to replace that piping because obviously the rest of the building wouldn't come out good if it was water coming into the building. And then on the copper side, you're allowed 1.3 milligrams per liter. We were at 0.36, and according to Bob Wordley, our water superintendent, he just said that's awesome. So I think good news from our perspective. We have 5 buildings that we don't have issues with, and we're not facing any concerns with all of those. So.
Oh, that's excellent. That's great.
I'm glad
great
you brought that up,
news.
because every
Yes.
time there's an article in the paper, I'm forgetting to mention it, but, I want you to be, Bill is very proactive about it.
I know
so.
that, and I appreciate that.
So it's
That's
all good news.
That's great to hear. How did the site visit go last week?
So, that's
And when was
actually
the
another-
site visit?
Last Wednesday, we had the owners, project managers that were interested in coming. It wasn't a mandatory meeting, but we did have 31 companies asked for the information. We had 12 show up to the site walk. Not unusual. Many of them don't come. They do their presentations. But a good group. All 3 that we've worked with in the town before showed up, and then a number of new ones, obviously. I think we were able to give them a very good view of what our concerns are at the borough and the things that we're trying to address. And that, we're looking for a partner, obviously, in the OPM, which is our representative, to make sure that we get all of those issues resolved. Their actual RFSs are due back to us this coming Wednesday, 2 days. And then we'll start the process of weeding through them and determining which is the best fit for this project.
Sounds like some fun reading for the vacation week.
Vacation.
We're still on track, though.
No,
Yep.
no,
To
we
go
are.
back to
That
the
is
MSBA for
very
February 6th.
exciting.
No, that's
We've been
absolutely-
given the
that's wonderful.
green light to keep going to the next step.
Actually, that was one message that we're sort of giving to the group. It's like, if you're interested in this project, we do meet our timelines and we do want to move along. So be prepared to be a go-getter.
Held to the gun, held to the, yep.
Thank you, Bill. Bruce, you have any?
Two things. First, when we had our first finance joint meeting with the selectmen, one of the things that convinced me to stay the course, as you'll recall, was Randy Scollin's comment that there were some programs we could explore for our seniors.
Right.
So I'd like to get a read back of that when Randy's ready, because I would like to see what we can do for our senior community.
I would like to hear that as well. That's
So I think that's just an outstanding item that we should make sure we follow up on, and I know the seniors is, that community is important to us. And the second, I just want to add my personal condolences to Christine Freeman as well and the Freeman family. And, this is a wonderful time of year, but that was a tragedy. And
her birthday is tomorrow.
Well, we all just, we feel for her and we count our blessings.
Thank you, Bruce. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So the state commissioner, Mitchell Chester, put out new requirements for graduation that he's testing out. I know last year he did listening tours across the state where he would go to communities, listen, take questions for parents and teachers for an hour, and then go to a school committee. I don't know how we could possibly get on that list, or if he's doing it again this year, but I'd love to have the opportunity to ask him some questions about the new requirements
Well,
that he's doing.
they choose different districts. Like, I went to one that was right over in Plainville. It was held at the Jackson School one time. So what they sometimes publish a list, so you would go to the nearest community.
We've never been asked if we want to participate. Usually, there's a call and you're told that the commission would like to visit. So we don't, I'll ask. I don't mind asking, but I think that they select a balance of types of districts, large,
sizes,
small, socioeconomic status.
But then sometimes they have the input.
The public comment
evenings,
on
like-
that is as they often ask for public comment for a lot of things. But I think
Or they do it in a couple of times they've done it in a town meeting type thing, and they choose a community. Like, I went to one that was in Plainville, because that was the closest. But they had, set out a list of 6 different places they were going to be across the state.
Well, it couldn't hurt to ask. I mean, as he's, putting together his schedule, and maybe we can, even if we're not on the list, we could find out where he's going
In the
to be,
area.
and perhaps send a representative to ask questions and report back. So we can find that out. Good point. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Amy? All set? All right. I think we've covered almost everything. There's just one thing I wanted to add, and in last week's Reporter, there was a very nice article on the report on the Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee. I just wanted to commend you for your tireless work on that committee over the last, has it been 2 years? 3 years. And, the article in the Reporter was a very good summary of what the committee does and what you have set out as goals for our community. I know it said over 1,200 people in town have been trained in the Darkness to Light training. I know our kids are safer because of everything that you and the other community members are doing, but I just think your commitment to the committee should be commended, and to keeping our children safe has just been huge. I'm not saying it very eloquently, but I wanted you to know that I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done.
It's a very dedicated group.
Yes.
I think right now we're trying to maintain a momentum and hopefully having some effect statewide on the regulations statewide that really expand the definition of mandated reporters who have to take the training. So I think we're starting to continue our efforts in the community, but we're trying to expand our reach and influence, and that is not easy. But we're getting there, so it's great. It's a great committee, and actually Jay Barros has been very helpful, so we should thank Representative Barros as well.
I just thought of one more shout out I would like to give. The music department sent, under the direction of Brian, there were 15 students who came and sang as a thank you at the open house at the Foxborough Cable Access for all the filming they do of all of their concerts. It was very, very well received. And it could be a sing-along, and then they gave us glimpses of what we were going to hear on Thursday night.
That's our brass players, our musicians, and our representatives from the choir will be out caroling on the Common on Thursday. And I did see that at the end of the caroling, there's an intent to sing outside of Robert's Funeral Home for the wake as well, which I think will be a very moving community event. And again,
What time is the caroling on the Common?
6:30. It begins at 6:30 on Thursday, the 22nd. So I think we've covered just about everything globally and locally here, and thank you for your efforts on the committee. The Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee.
It's a good group.
Well, it is very much appreciated. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I would.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yo.
Good night. Happy holidays, everybody.
Good night. Everyone enjoy. Peace and love, time of family.